The air around your head is solid thought. It is not metaphorical. It is structural. It is physical. Your visual cortex, firing a random cascade of neurons while you stare at a wall, just extruded a 1 centimeter cube of gray matter into the space between your temple and the window pane. It hangs there, suspended. It weighs exactly as much as the memory it's made of. Survival was an impossible accident of brain chemistry. Here's the thing, Homo sapiens shouldn't have lasted the first afternoon. A single moment of prehistoric anxiety, a rustle in the grass, the shadow of a predator, that surge of cortisol would have instantly crystallized a cage of pure, adrenalized fear around the thinker's skull. Their own panic, made manifest, would have crushed their trachea. Their final, desperate thought for breath would have solidified inside their lungs. It was a self-terminating loop. But we didn't think like that. Not at first. Your early ancestors, huddled around a fire 300,000 years ago, possessed a secret weapon, a singular, brutal focus. Their minds were not cluttered with abstract dread, or to-do lists, or existential spirals. The thought stream was a narrow, deep channel. See predator. Make spear. Find berry. Stay warm. Each cognitive event was a clean, direct impulse. A spike of intention. And intention is what built the world. That first spear wasn't just shaped by hands. The idea of the spear, the perfect mental image of a sharpened point, would have physically laminated the wood, reinforcing its grain. The thought of fire didn't just inspire tending the flames. Focused concentration on the heat would have amplified the combustion at a molecular level, making the fire burn hotter, longer, with less fuel. They weren't just manipulating their environment. They were programming it directly. The problem is a thought is a messy electrochemical storm. It's never just one thing. So when your ancestor, let's call her Alara, looked at her sleeping child and felt a complex wave, love, yes, but also a sharp undercurrent of fear for the coming winter, a memory of last season's hunger, a wish for safety, that cognitive bundle didn't produce a simple warm glow. It physically altered the child. A patch of skin might harden into a curtainous scale from the fear. A strand of hair might turn to spun glass from the crystalline purity of the love memory. Survival meant learning to police your own mind, to think in pure, utilitarian blocks. Contradiction was lethal. Your kitchen window cracks from a distant daydream. Because you are not Alara. Your brain is a cacophony. You're boiling pasta, and your mind drifts. You remember a cringe-worthy thing you said in 2012. That instant of social shame, a micro-thought, manifests as a hairline fracture in your window pane 5 feet away. The glass doesn't just crack, it weeps a slow, viscous fluid that smells like regret. Your momentary fantasy about winning the lottery warps the copper wiring inside your walls, twisting it into impossible golden spirals that short-circuit the grid. A fleeting, uncharitable thought about your neighbor solidifies the dust in their air filter into a gritty, resentful paste. Domestic life becomes a minefield of your own subconscious. You learn to meditate. You learn to compartmentalize. But the background radiation of modern consciousness, the news alerts, the traffic stress, the ambient low-grade despair of an inbox you'll never clear, it all has mass. It all has texture. The very atmosphere thickens. You walk to work through air that feels like cold oatmeal, the aggregated anxiety of 10,000 commuters. And then someone has a truly, catastrophically bad idea. The last conversation on Earth was a silent scream. It starts with a political argument online. Two people enraged, their thoughts broadcasting not as text but as physical law. One thinks, with white-hot conviction, "I wish you were silenced." The other thinks back, "You are less than human." The first thought crystallizes the air in the second person's bronchial tubes into a solid, soundproof polymer. They choke, gasping silently. Their retaliatory thought, "less than human," immediately triggers a rapid, horrific atavism in the first. Their skeleton begins to reconfigure, vertebrae fusing, cortex simplifying, a violent reversion down the evolutionary tree. But the thoughts are public now. They're viral. The concept of silencing spreads, a cognitive pathogen. Anyone who witnesses the event, anyone who even conceives of the idea of forced silence, has the same physical reaction. Their airways seal. Globally, within minutes, the act of conceptualizing vocal suppression causes vocal suppression. Simultaneously, the less-than-human meme mutates. It's no longer targeted. It becomes a general field effect. Anyone feeling a moment of dehumanizing contempt, for a rival, for a group, for themselves, triggers localized biological regression. Office workers sprout vestigial tails. Politicians mid-speech find their jawbones thrusting forward, their foreheads sloping. Civilization doesn't collapse. It deconstructs. It unmakes itself at the speed of cognition. Skyscrapers, products of complex architectural thought, begin to wobble as the collective mental grasp of structural engineering frays. One architect's doubt about a load-bearing calculation makes that single beam as brittle as chalk. A banker's sudden vivid memory of sandcastles collapsing as a child translates, terrifyingly, to the foundation of his 80-story tower. The Industrial Revolution built a prison of pure idea. And this is the final, grim irony. Our greatest monuments become our tombs. A factory, the solidified thought of mass production and efficiency, becomes an inescapable law. The land around it must produce. The people near it must be efficient. The very concept of leisure within its zone of influence becomes physically painful. The idea of a weekend evaporates from the local collective mind, the neural pathways literally erased by the ambient psychic field of the machinery. Power grids, reflections of our desire for control, now control us. Think about darkness, and the streetlights near you flare, then explode, leaving you in the very darkness you feared. Think about connection, and the fiber optic cables under the city swell like arteries, physically tethering buildings together in a grotesque, constricting web. Human thought created a non-Newtonian reality. The more you struggle against a concept, the more solid it becomes. Fight against war, and your aggression physically manifests the weapons. Pray for peace, and the enforced calm becomes a suffocating paralytic stasis. Your body is no longer your own. It is a public forum. A moment of hunger pangs can suddenly plaster every surface in your home with images of food. A surge of libido can rewrite the biology of anyone in your immediate vicinity. Your private depression becomes a localized weather system, a drizzle of lukewarm oil that coats your neighborhood. There is no interiority. There is only broadcast. We are sitting by the first and last fire. The only safe spaces are the oldest ones. Places where the thought forms are simple, stable, and deeply ingrained. A hearth, a circle of stones. The concept of fire is so primal, so singular, warmth, light, protection, community, that it creates a bubble of stable reality. The air here is just air. The ground is just ground. But you must be careful. You cannot let your mind wander to what the fire might burn. You cannot think of the cold outside. You must hold the pure abstract idea of flame in your forebrain, a cognitive lifeline. This is where we end, and where we began, huddled not against the elements, but against the chaos of our own magnificent, terrible minds. Our technology, our cities, our philosophies, all just complex thoughts that eventually gained critical mass and turned on us. The ultimate pollution was never plastic in the ocean. It was ideology in the stratosphere, memes in the molecular bonds. The final human is not the last one breathing. It's the last one capable of a simple, quiet, empty thought. The last one who can look at a flame and see just a flame. Not a metaphor. Not a memory. Just light. And heat. And for a moment, reality holds. If you enjoyed this, like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.